Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rocket Lasso Live, Season 1, Episode 17. We are back after a week's vacation that I was on. We covered a whole bunch of news, and we just had some technical problems because XSplit decides that my buttons aren't clickable anymore. So let's cover the news real quick before it goes weird again. So I'm going to share my screen here. I just had a quick announcement here, which is Half Res 8 is now online. Tickets are available. We've already sold half the tickets in a week, so I imagine it's going to fill up really quickly. But you should totally come and check it out. Go to halfres.com. It's a one-night mini conference. We cram in a whole bunch of talks. I think we got like 6 of them this year. There's lots of contests and games and networking and really cool people from all over the industry. Lots of prizes. There's just so much going on. It's really, really fun. You should come and hang out and check it out. And yeah, that should be really fun. And then the other little bit of news, or something I'm thinking about, is that I have a couple of very busy months coming up, and traditionally, when I would do the live shows, there'd be a break right around this time because I'm busy helping run Half-Res, and I'm busy doing things like SIGGRAPH, which I'll be going to a little bit next week, and hopefully be live streaming from the show, and also I'm going to be doing some of the Max on Road show. There's just a lot going on, a lot I have to do. So me not having to worry about live streams for a 2-month period is very valuable. So even though we're only partially through, well, not partially through, we're 17 episodes in, but we started kind of halfway through the year because that's when the company started. So it might be a little bit clunky this time, but it would go on break and then come back with season 2, and that would be a longer, more like 30 episode season rather than 17. We're not, and I'm definitely going to be live streaming next week. There'll be an official announcement if we're doing it. I'm just throwing out there what's in my head that might be a thing. But in any case, why don't we go ahead and share the screen while everything seems to be working. If you're in the chat, which I already covered it, hello everybody. Start posting those links, start posting those questions, and we should be ready to rock here. Thanks for hanging with me while we worked out the technical difficulties. So I am clicking the share screen button. Here I am in the corner. Hi, everybody. And let's see if we got any links. Crossfader on the ball with a link right away. So here's a fun one. Brushes at 26 seconds in. Let's see what we got here. So we got Vimeo link. Let me make sure that the audio is not going through this, so there's not anything too loud. All right, what do we got? Refining Beauty from Saddington. Banus? Is it just Banus? Or is it Baines? I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Saddington. Refining Beauty. Okay, we got some fun cloth going on. Ooh, look at the cloth. Okay, so we've got some sort of a perfume, or yeah, it looks like, yeah, it's definitely some sort of perfume going on here. So you're saying 26 seconds in, we got lots of motion graphics here. It looks very Cinema 4D. Get some Rhenoy fracture there. There's definitely, yeah, this is, I'd say almost guaranteed to be Cinema 4D. But you're saying right around here. Whee! Okay, so you had 2 brushes. Oh, look at that. That's cool. That was really cool. It looks a lot like the magnet thing I was trying to tinker with. Interesting. But in any case, the specific question here is on these 2 brushes colliding. Boom! Oh, man. So that's some fun, tricky stuff. What do we do with that? I like it. I think one of the main things is that we would be using hair. Clearly, we'd be using hair. So let's see if we can get some hair growing here to start out with. I'm going to make an oil tank because that just gives us really nice rounded cap that I think might be nice for a brush. In fact, I'll probably just make that editable. And we'll select the cap and hit UI, delete. All the points are deleted in R20, so that's nice. So we just got this nice cap. I'm not going to worry about a whole bunch of other elements on it, but let's go ahead and immediately create hair. So that's going to be simulation. Hair objects, add hair. Boom, we got hairs. Perfect, looking good. Let's double the length up to 200. Very nice. They're very even, but once we render, they're going to look a lot more complicated. What we can do is click on the hair, go to editor. I'm going to say don't show the don't show the guidelines, but I want to see the final hairs. I want to see all of them. So this is what it actually is going to look like in the end. You can see we have quite a few hairs. That's pretty cool. I like it. Looking good. So The tricky part here is, first of all, we have hair-on-hair collisions, potentially. Although, we can probably get away with faking that. And in fact, I think we will fake that. Why don't we just make a sphere here? And that's going to be what collides. In fact, it's going to be a lot. Well, let's see. What's the easiest way? My thought is, like, let's just make sure this is intersecting and we'll have the sphere pass through it. But just to throw it out there, I think the two brushes, they wouldn't collide with each other. You would make one brush and you'd make it, let's see, we'd probably make this shape here, increase the radius. So you see this is kind of matching with the brushes. So the top brush would strike this sphere, and then this brush would strike the opposite brush up here. They wouldn't be intercolliding with each other. We just need the general shape. And we could probably make the shape a little bit fancier if we needed to, but I think that this will actually work pretty well. So we'll shrink that up a little bit, and I want it to collide through, probably in a pretty big way. So why don't we do it like this? We'll just run that through. Now we could also move the brush, but let's keep it simple. It's good, a very, very good idea to keep these things simple while we're testing out different processes. In fact, there's probably too many hairs here, but let's go ahead and keyframe this sphere right away. We will just use keyframe, so I'm just going to keyframe X, Y, and Z. Let's fast forward to the end, and we'll have this animated over to this side. So it should pass through. Now, of course, you can immediately say with this nice little bowl cut going on here that the hair simulation is going to run and they're all going to be moving. So we need to make these presumably a lot stiffer. So if we go into the dynamics tab, then we can do a couple things we do. First of all, we go to forces and we say, you know what, don't worry about gravity. As far as the hairs are concerned, there's no gravity, so they shouldn't fall right away. And we can also go to dynamics and go under advanced, and we can change our single control that we really have to control these dynamics, and that is setting a custom number of segments, because you know that these hairs naturally have a guide count of 8 segments. So this line is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 all the way up. I don't know if the first and last point count, but I think they do. So the more segments you have, the more they can tilt over. If we only had one segment, they wouldn't really tilt that much. So by going into dynamics, we can say, as far as you're calculating dynamics, don't use all 8 segments, only use a couple of them. So just based on that, why don't we go ahead and add a hair collider onto the sphere? I think it has to be made editable, but let's find out. I don't know for sure. So let's add a hair collider, and let's save the scene file before we hit play. Jump up to Episode 17, Scene Files, Section 1A. Hair, or I guess it's not, yeah, it's just brush particles. It's going to be a tricky one. So now we've done that, let's go ahead and hit play. It's running relatively quickly. The collision is pretty good. It's a little springy. So I think we can actually make it bendier. So I'm going to go and add another segment there. We have not modifiers, maps, I guess just properties. So we do have these controls where we can, let's see, we've got mass, surface, drag. I think drag is a big one. We want to have these settle down pretty quickly. So I'm going to let these collide, and then they should spring. Keep in mind, this is not playing back in real time. It's about half the normal speed. Yeah, it's not bad. I kind of want this to travel through quicker, so I might grab that keyframe and just speed this up. Apparently we did not have to make the sphere editable, so that's a nice detail. So there we go. We have this passing through, colliding with it. Hopefully that is working well. All right, so that's good setup. Let's save it. Now comes the actual tricky part, and I have literally never done this, but, well, I know for a fact that thinking particles, you could tell thinking particles to stick to the surface. But I'm hoping that maybe we can use X particles, because thinking particles, it's just an absolute nightmare. Nobody uses them because it's so clunky, it's so specific, and you hit limitations pretty quickly. So we're going to try and see if we can make this be X particles compatible. And I just updated my X particles today. So under generate, I'm going to make sure right away that we are generating a spline here. These are all generating, this is generating a big old spline. So let's make sure that this doesn't horribly slow us down. It is slower. It's a third as slow, but now we do have a bunch of splines here. So For our purpose, for testing purposes, there is no reason for us to have this be running this slow. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this down pretty low, and we can always crank this back up again. There we go. Now we're down to 500 individual hairs, and it's running really quick. It's over 30 frames per second, so it's real time. Now we can start doing our tests. So we've got a spline here. Let's go ahead and save it again. I'm going to immediately save it as 1B, so we can continue from that point. So let's go ahead and create some X particles. So let's create an emitter, and the emitter is going to be based off of a shape. Now we might need to delete them. I'm going to say let's base it off of an object. The object is going to be hair, which is just a spline object right now. So it's going to be cloning onto the hair. I'm going to say, I don't know if we want to be points or edges. I'm not sure the way it acknowledges these. So let's say edges. And random points, segments, all that seems good. I can hit play. Let's see. Okay, it does seem to indeed be generating particles off of here. I'm going to say stick the particle to the source element. This is the most important step, is if this automatically sticks properly to a spline running hair dynamics. So let's click on the emitter, go to display, and we want it on the editor to display little circles so we can see them clearer. Let's make them a nice bright blue because we don't always want it to be green. And let's hit play and see what we get. Okay, well, we got some challenges here because you see it's generating these particles really nicely, but they do not seem to be sticking. Direction, I don't care. Chain object, I don't care. Edges, I mean, that's a dangerous part. Okay, that's interesting. I changed it. Let me make sure edges wasn't doing it. Yeah, see, they're not sticking at all. If I change our emit from points, then it's behaving oddly, but they do seem sort of stuck. Not entirely. That's weird. That's very odd the way it's behaving. Emitter shape is defined emission instance. Oh, this is going to be tricky. Yeah, why do they get all staticky like that? Yeah, well, there, you see, I just said one particle per source element. And so this is divided into 12 parts because the individual hairs are 12 parts. And now they are indeed sticking on there. And so even with that limitation, that could be a viable way of working from this. But before I don't want to do that quite yet. First of all, let's try putting this new connect object to run on it. I don't think this is going to make much of a difference, but it's always worth giving it a try. So let's go ahead and put that into connect, hit play. It's the same way. It's still staticky. So yeah, that is a little odd. But if we say one per element, it does stick. No reason to use a connect if it's not doing anything. Now, we don't have 5 you're saying increase substeps. I hate increasing X particle substeps. It's such a blunt tool. So we have subframe steps. Let's try cranking that up just to see if it does anything. Nope, still staticky. I'm going to put another 10 on there. Still staticky, so that's not listening to do anything. We can crank up our iterations. I'm going to go 10 times higher on that. Still staticky. Still staticky. I don't know what accuracy does. I'm going to crank it up to 100%. Static, 0%. Still staticky. So, yeah, nothing we just did. And apparently you can't undo or redo these. So let's put that back to its default. Does that work? Okay, cool. We can't do default. Yeah, so iteration, substeps, and accuracy had no effect on it, sadly. I'm going to turn off subframe emit. Also, we could potentially, I just want there to be a shot. So let's just, okay, so now they're at least all appearing right away. Boom, they're there. And then they're still there. So yeah, not so great there. But if we do say stick one particle per source element, then we get this, and it's pretty good. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. So let's just assume we have to work from that limitation. So my thought is we need a bunch of these to get deleted right away. So let's go ahead and create a question. I'm going to add a question, and the question is going to be if the particle position is, can you feed in a field? That'd be great. Particle position is inside a volume. We can do that. It'd be great if this allowed the feeding of fields, but let's just say it's inside of a volume. The particle is inside the volume of what object, and we will create a sphere, T for scale, and do that. So we're only going to get them more on the tip, and that will become our object, and we'll hide that, and let's see if that works. Oh, and we have to give an action. So if that happens, then it adds the action, and the action will be a direct control to I always forget. How do you kill particles? Other action. I can never remember how to connect it or kill it. Do you just set the life to 0? Control modifier action. Direct change life. Okay, that's fine, Samuel. Let's do it. Direct action, change life. So that's why I thought. I'm always like, oh, you can just kill it. And then X particles, you could kill it. So you're saying direct action, change life. Oh, and then kill particles. Okay, a little, not exactly what I was expecting. Okay, well, that's kind of weird. Look, well, I guess this might bend into it, but this is inside volume. In the here, this is only calculating test once and pass. So as soon as this starts moving, they're freaking out. I'm going to turn that off for a second. Yeah. They're constantly there, but is that because they're dying and refreshing? Emitter is set to a shot, and it's a duration of 1 frame, so those should be getting born in the beginning and just be doing their thing. And now we say go ahead and kill them if they're inside of that volume. Now we could, I'm going to record. In fact, let's record the radius. So it's going to get them on frame 1, and then everything after that, our radius, we will drop down to 0. Why not? So now that sphere should be a non-variable here. Weird. Look at that. Weird. Especially since we said it's sticking to the source object, 1 particle per element. Use sphere fall off under mission tab. No need for any question stuff. Under the emission tab. What are you saying? You're saying there's no need for a question. Under the emission tab, use a sphere. Object tab. What? Oh, there's a fall off? Is that what you're saying? Make a fall off here? Oh, if that works, that's something. Neat. Okay, so we got a sphere. Let's make a radius. Let's see, do they exist? Okay, they exist in there. Is there an invert? There's not, but we can increase our radius. I guess we'll just do that and then invert this. Well, regardless, even when they seemingly don't exist, as soon as it goes through, it's making them all staticky. It's really weird. Oh, man. So, we haven't hit a dead end yet. It's just that, unfortunately, X Particles is not quite doing what we were hoping it would here. But I've got some other ideas. Let's go ahead and not make that infinite again. And I just don't trust. It's like if these aren't there, they're going to be appearing everywhere. So new thought, hopefully it doesn't slow us down too much, is let's go ahead and sweep our geometry here. And we'll clone onto geometry instead. So let's create a sweep. And let's turn off the emitter and put the hair in. So we are sweeping these end sides really big. Drop that down. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it to not worry about caps. I'm going to turn off cap. That should make that run faster, significantly faster, shockingly. And we also don't need this to sweep all the way. So I'm going to say start growth is going to pull up. Unfortunately, it is going on a per object basis, which is not great. How do we... How do we sweep those only a part of this? This is proving trickier than I thought it would. I like the challenge, but definitely trickier. See, if we turn on this being like a square sweep, there is no partial sweep. It's swept or it's not swept. Now, we could always delete the particles above it. Maybe that's a fine way. I was going to make it be it so that there's less geometry. And extra objects might not be helping us. If we say this is just a triangle, then we don't need the sweep at all. It's already geometry. And if we go into our hair, then we can go to thickness, and I'm going to jump it up to 1111, and you can see we just got essentially have the same thing. You see we got our tubes running relatively quick. And if we turn on a polygon subdivision, you can see we've got fairly low poly count. So that's all good. And now we're going to tell the emitter to clone not onto, well, I guess it is cloning onto the hair. And now it's not cloning on points, it's going to clone onto, let's just say, the polygon area randomly. And we do want it to stick. Okay, cool. And what do we got? We got shots, and this is randomly creating a bunch of particles, hopefully. Yeah, so there's more. Let's create even more. Boom, lots of particles. Boom, and let's see. Look, they seem to be sticking on there pretty well. So, okay, something. We got something. Now, we couldn't get rid of all of this extra geometry. It just kind of was there. But what we could do is tell the X particles to maybe do that fall off thing again. Let's see if that works. Spherical fall off. Hit play. I thought I inverted that already, so visible radius invert retries. Flip horizontal. Does that work? Yeah, I mean, if our fall off is only sphere, box, or any of those, that's not giving me the shape I want. So I'm not going to do that. We will make the question again. So I was wondering if I had to delete that or not. It looks like we're bringing it back. So I'm going to add a question. We are going to worry about the particle position. If it is inside of a volume, the volume I kept, it's the sphere. If that's the case, make an action. If the action is direct action, we're going to change the life, and changing life is a direct action of killing him. So now they should all appear, and then now we just get the top, and it runs nice and quick, and they're stuck to it. All right, cool. We're slowly making progress. We finally got something that's sort of working. So let's go ahead and give it a save. And now we've got a nice bundle of particles. They are actually stuck to the surface. We can get this nice little variation where they are, and they're stuck. So what is next? The tricky part, I guess the tricky part is just if it's colliding here, letting some of the particles fall off. And in theory, that would be moving and everything. But I mean, could we just have them randomly go off? We could also potentially have it be an action if they fall inside of the circle, which could be neat. Let's go ahead and make this is our collider circle. I'm going to make a duplicate of it, get rid of the collision tag, and let's hit T for scale and scale that up. And let's add a Cinema 4D display tag, turn it on, and put it on line. So now you can see we get this extra wave here. Now, or it could just be if they collide. No, it can't be if it collides. It should be if it collides, but this is just probably too big. So we'll deal with that in a moment. So here's our second sphere. I'm going to call it sphere. I'm just going to brush off. Okay, so now we go to our emitter and we add a second question. Let's add in a new question. And before I forget, I'm going to immediately tell it that this question should be calculating all frames. And this question is going to be, if the particle, is it position? No. Well, it could be position. If the particle position is inside of the volume, and the volume in this case is going to be our sphere brush off, then do the action. And the action, I think, is a direct action, and we're going to tell it to unstick, I think. Can we do that? Control spawning. Change the data. Maybe it's not direct action. Other action. Change emitter. Nope. Direct action. Control modifier action. Oh, it's under other action. Thank you. Bowser. And it's unstick from source. I just want to see if this visually works at all. So, what happened there? Oh, that's keyframed as well. I have to delete the keyframes off of this sphere brush because it jumped because it's a new child. Shift-C, PSR, reset that. There we go. Got that back. So particles should be spawned, and now as soon as this goes through, you see they're getting hit, and they're flying off. Okay, that's good. That's what we want. I'm going to hit T for scale. We're going to make it only a little bigger. Now let's see. Okay, they're stuck until it gets hit, and then they wiggle around, and they're doing fine. Now, there's a lot of things we can do. First of all, this is just striking it, and they're flying off, and they're just doing their own thing. So obviously, we don't want all of that craziness. Well, there's a lot of things, and not necessarily things I know how to do, but we would definitely want to get motion inheritance. I want to get motion inheritance. So, like, the hope would be that these could move along with the object, but that doesn't really seem to be the case. That's not necessarily... we haven't pushed all the limitations on that, or we haven't tried all the options there yet. But that's something I would like to do. But we have a lot of options. Right now I'm doing the simplest way, which is just having this brush through, and if it hits it, it just lets go. So that's no good. In fact, even this is going through, it's passing through first before these even get a chance to wiggle. So honestly, I don't even know if it'll work, but if we shrank that smaller than our sphere, maybe we could get those inheriting the motion a little bit. Hard to tell, but it kind of felt a little bit, but I can't be sure. Also, there's a lot of things I haven't done yet. First of all, I think that they're getting unstuck, which means they're getting their speed. I don't want any speed. So if I do this, hopefully they'll just stay there. Yeah, now they're just staying there, which means we can go and make a gravity and probably just a little bit of like field flow or something. So let's go and add in some motion, gravity, and now we've got gravity, and those should fall away now. But we could also do do they actually have a way of doing that? In X Particles, they added in those amazing, is it even called? I thought it was called like field flow. Is it a modifier? A motion modifier? Dang it, what's that called? Because we could do turbulence, which is fine. But dang it, what's it called? Not direction, control. What is that object called? The really cool one where you get all little arrows pointing in different directions. And it's not domain. Oh, there, field flow. Ha ha. Now, with field flow, can you drive the flow by an object passing through? Because if we could have this object pass through and it kind of creates a wind, then that would be really cool. So how do we control? I just don't know how to control that, so it's dangerous to do that. So let's ignore that for now. We'll just leave the gravity, and I'll use a turbulence. But I would love to go tinker with that. If I was building a real rig, I would spend a bunch of time tinkering with that. So let's do another motion. We'll just do a turbulence. And this should be pretty straightforward. So now these should be static until these are hit, and then gravity can take over. Now these are really, these are supposed to be tiny little particles that kind of waft through the air. So I'm going to make our gravity really low. I mean, we could probably go to 0, honestly, but like no gravity. Our turbulence is doing almost nothing. So it's already got some scale, it's got some frequency, but we want a lot more strength. You know what? I'm going to give it negative gravity so they go up into the air. Yeah. Now the field flow, if we got that working, or I guess it's a flow field, if hopefully we could pass a sphere through it, and that would kind of create a vortex of a direction that they should be traveling. Um, we obviously don't have that right now. But okay, so we got that. So these are getting hit and they're traveling. The direct, like them inheriting, is not doing much now. Right now we're just straight up saying, hey, if you enter this volume, then get brushed off. And that's cool. It's a nice, simple way of doing it. But another thing we could do is pretty much say, hey, if you're moving, if you have a velocity, then you get knocked off. Or if you have a velocity of a particular speed, you get knocked off. And I think that'd be a pretty cool way of doing it. So right now we're saying inside of a volume, but as an alternative, let's try a particle position. Is there a velocity? Nearest particle, distance traveled. That'd be interesting, distance traveled. But the trick here is that our brush is static, and I kind of want it to be speed. That'd be interesting. If the speed is greater than something. But yeah, I guess it'd be, I'd really want a change in velocity. But let's just see if this works. Right now it's not looking at the volume at all. It's just if this suddenly starts traveling a certain speed, they'd let go. And I don't know how fast they're traveling, so let's lower that a lot. Let's lower it. Okay, if I go down to 0, it does do something. If I go down to 1, they stay stuck. There's no, oh, is greater than 1. I mean, that speed's got to be greater than 1, right? Oh, I don't know how to determine speed, so let's say 0.1. Okay, fine, 0.001. If that doesn't work, then I'm not thinking of this right. Okay, well, apparently not thinking of that right. So speed doesn't do what I thought it did. Let's do world speed. Nope. Oh, the speed jumped way up again. Nope. Distance traveled seems weird, but we could always try that too. The local to particle. Why is this not working? I mean, this is saying unstick from source. What am I doing wrong here? Why am I doing wrong here? There's not speed because they're stuck. Okay. So these aren't traveling because they're stuck. There's no... that's very unintuitive to me. It's in the same position as the vertex. I would hope it... So there's no way... I appreciate everybody who knows X particles a little better than I do. I appreciate that you are saying that because they're locked to the surface, that it has a speed of 0. But is there a way of... Like right now I'm saying recorded distance based on the world. It should just be what the particle's doing based on the world. And clearly that's not what it's doing. So is there any way to do what I'm trying to do there in spirit, which is, hey, if this moves, let it go? Because local to particle, maybe that would make more sense. But if I say world, like if it's moved greater than 1 unit, which clearly they have, they should let go. That doesn't make sense. Radius, rotation, speed. Yeah, and then speed, we tried those. That didn't work. The volume is so brute force. I don't like using that volume method. Tobias, you gotta keep things simple, just for this type of situation. What you're saying, don't stick the particles, just spawn on the hairs. Spawn on the hairs. I mean, are you saying that they're what you're saying could work if you're doing a swap, but I want this actual particle to be the thing that is stuck here, moving around, and then when it lets go, it flies away. So you get the little tiny bits of paint on there, and it floats away. We could make it so that, yes, as this is striking through, it's generating brand new particles only when it's colliding. But then these other ones didn't let go, and that would be a bigger fake and more not in the spirit of what I was trying to do here. So I think I know what you mean, but... And yeah, that's another good point, Bowser, that one of the ideas here is that if we got this basic thing working, we could move the brush. So that stuff gets... God, it's a little finicky. It's a little finicky right now. Yeah, straight up particle position. We don't want that. Yeah. I don't want to get bogged down. Display, action, import, export, mapping, add. Oh, that's mapping. I don't want mapping. Like, how do you create the directions here? I'm just curious. If we made a linear field, no effect. What is that supposed to do? Why is there a fall off on that? I guess it's just how much. I guess that's just how it's affecting it. So that doesn't make sense. General flow direction along spline. Okay, this is interesting. Shader target along a spline. 2 spline particles. Surface normal. So I guess we could say along spline, and it wants a spline. So we could create a, select that and say MoGraph tracer. And now it should be tracing the vertices. And if I feed into the field flow this spline, then that would start getting drawn along spline. Why did it stop showing the little angles? Why did my arrows disappear? Yeah, I mean, this is, yeah, X particles is just not something, I mean, I can do a lot in it, and I feel like I have ideas of where to look, but I just don't have a 100% intuition for where everything is all of the time, so it makes it so that we end up tinkering around a little bit extra. I don't understand why the arrows disappear when I feed a spline, and the splines don't really seem to have any effect. So, yeah. MDev, what's going on? I see you. Well, no, and I mean, well, MDev, you said add attraction, and I agree. We could add an attraction that would pull it, but the field flow would have been a cooler way. So I didn't read it because it wasn't the direction I was going to go in right away. But having said that, like, field flow isn't working, so we could totally put a attraction there. Although I have found attractors to be a little weird. Motion, we could do a gravity, but we could also just do a straight up attraction. Put that as a child of the sphere, shift CPSR, and now that becomes the attractor. It should be pulling all the particles towards it. So yeah, you can see at least there's a pull of it, even without doing anything else. Like, there's definitely a pull towards here. We could have the particles, we could turn this into an X particle collider, XP collider. So now this should actually be striking it, boom, and but forcing those away. So now it'll actually travel and bounce off of it. So yeah, we can do that and do it a little bit, but the field flow would be really cool to make that work. And then a couple things I want to say is, like, right now the hair, right now we're generating all this geometry for these hairs, but we could have that not render and then actually just generate those final hair-based hairs, which I think would probably be better. We could definitely generate a lot more particles here, but essentially, since we're not getting the, even this pushes down, I might even want like a negative attractor in this, because I don't want these all flying down inside of it. Like, it should, kind of be bouncing off that. We could this is a bad idea, but we could put I'm going to save it first. We could put a hair collider or a sketch and, an X particle collider on our hair, and then those might bounce off there, but it might be too much geometry. It's working surprisingly well though. You see how it's traveled down and it's getting trapped inside of it, so it's kind of fun. If that worked, then that's actually pretty cool. I'd still probably want to do something to force them more upward, but that's too bad. Because oh man, there's so many cool things we could have done if well, and the the flow field could work completely. I'm just missing that one little thing. Wind. No, it's not bad. Like I'm not. This isn't horrible, but this is such a basic thing, and I felt like we could make a really robust rig that does exactly what we want it to do, and it's serviceable, but it's not. I had higher hopes for it. And I know for a fact that the things I'm thinking we could do better. We just haven't gotten it to work quite yet. Yeah, and even that, it's like we have a pretty strong turbulence as that's coming through. That'd be kind of neat. We could go and give the attractor here, give it a fall off. I'm going to give it a spherical field fall off. And now that spherical field, we can increase it like that. So what I would do, and then we can go into remapping and then give it a strong inner one. That's kind of right there. So what this is saying is the strength is really strong up to this point, but it'll move away. And now our attractor, I would probably make it a lot stronger. So we could give it a force of, I don't know how far is too much, but let's give it like 55. And the idea here being is it's going to do the initial pull, and you get all this turbulence initially. That didn't seem to be nearly enough. Let's add a 5 on there. So now it's pulling really strongly. So you get that, whoa, I don't know why those got suddenly flicked away so hard, but it's kind of cool. I think those actually, like, literally, the hairs are flopping back. So that's better already. But by putting a stronger attractor where, as it's passing through, it gets pulled for a little bit until it gets flung away. And I would want a really strong influence while striking it, and then they could kind of go and do their own things. You get a little bit of turbulence, and then, in theory, gravity would take over. So we can go ahead and give it some more positive gravity here, and this should pull, and this attraction would hopefully pull it up enough to get that wisp, and then everything would twirl around and then begin falling. Turbulence, standard is cool. Curl is the super cool looking one, but it tends to be very overpowering. So let's see, it fights everything else quite a bit, but you get this type of swirling turbulence. But I want that to fall off as well. So this turbulence would be potentially also, I'm going to make a second spherical fall off here. We'll make it bigger. Yeah, that's fine. We'll make it bigger and tell the turbulence to have that fall off. So then it's going to have this really strong turbulent pulls, but only when it's close by. And then once this moves away, they're free to just kind of do their own thing. And I think once you start combining those, you get something a little more art directable, something with a little bit more style to it. But we're still not. There's those little special elements in the beginning that I think we could get working a lot better. But it's something. Like it's fine. It's functional. If I had to crank something out in a day, this might be like, okay, that's as far as I can go. But it's not fancy. There's so many cool things you can do with fall offs and whatnot. Even the like, okay, so this attractor, I don't specifically like the style of this attractor. It's not doing quite what I want to. So what I would prefer would be something like making a wind. So we can make a motion wind, and that should just blow everything in a particular direction. I'm presuming on Z+. So let's go and point it over that way. And I'm going to make it really strong. Let's see if we can visually see if it's doing anything. Like I said, okay, it is, but like I said, turbulence, that type of curl turbulence tends to override things in the big way. So until it's kind of fallen out of fall off, it doesn't really seem to have much of an effect. Now we could keep on making it stronger, and I think maybe it would eventually do something. Sort of. Yeah, it's a little weird. Like, turbulence just overrides, but now if I take that off, interesting. Does the wind have a fall off as well? No. Why is that? I guess maybe there's just colliding with that. Interesting. well, I don't want to go too far on this, but what I was going to say is we could make it so this wind is based off of a fall off, and the fall off could be based off the tracer, and the tracer could be based on going on a radius of those curves, and then we could give that a significant radius, and then we could tell the tracer that those fade out, so that is limited. So we only get a little bit of a tail, and I did it backwards as I always do. So you can do this so that it's almost like, oh, there's a strong wind blowing, but only for this little bit trailing behind it. And then after that, it's free to kind of go and do whatever it wants. So let's see. Let's turn off the attractor for a moment. I'm going to turn off the collisions with the hair. I think it's messing with our effect and slowing us down. Yeah, so you can see the wind significant, or that could also just be this collider, honestly, bouncing them out of the way. But the hope would be the wind would pull, and maybe even in here, we could do a positive gravity as well. So this one, we could say, give the exact same fall off. I'm going to go to this one, copy it, go into the gravity, paste it, and this gravity goes upward. So the idea here would hopefully be gravity is negative there, pulling it up, and then as soon as those tails fade out, then they wouldn't be getting pulled down anymore. As long as they're in that radius. That collision with our sphere is very overpowering. I'm going to temporarily take that off. So, okay, so now you can see the wind blowing it forward and upward a little bit. Not as strong as I thought it would be. Yeah, so a very uniform hit. So we probably want to add some variation on that as well. You can see how I would want to start layering this stuff up, but those are not working as nicely as just our collisions had been. Just throwing that out there. So we can reapply those. So, this simpler version seemed to be working fine. We're getting the collisions, we're getting the attractor, pulling everything up, and they swirl around. And then as they fall out, then the gravity should take over and they should start falling. Even having a little turbulence, I'd like them clustering up with each other a little bit, getting those little air swirls is really fun. Bowser, I do agree, this would be... this would make for a fun tutorial if it got refined a little bit. It would be a full-on X-Particles tutorial, but it's a neat idea. I like the idea. It's really cool. Eric is saying I'd have to bake the tracer to a spline, and then the field flow would work. Well, that goes against the parametric nature of what I was trying to do using the tracer. There's no reason to use a tracer if you're baking it. So I'm just curious if there's a way in the field flow to affect it by passing objects through it, because we can target an object, surface tangent potentially. Even that doesn't necessarily make sense to me. Yeah, I haven't really played with it. I know it's really powerful. I really like the way it looks, but the field direction. The field, can we have a field drive a direction? That would be cool. Oh, yeah, field. So is this looking at, when it says field, is it talking about fields? The field drives the direction. So if we put in a random field, does it randomize the direction? Oh yeah, look, so don't affect that. I want it to affect the direction, or is that direction? Well, none of them are doing anything. Does it have to play? No, dang it. Okay, well, I don't know. I just have to learn how flow field works. It's really powerful. It's exactly the way I would want a turbulence to work. But it's obviously not cooperating with me right now. So I want to move on to another question. So if somebody has another question, let's feel free to post the link. And if it's one I already saw, or if it's one you put earlier, feel free to post it again. And as soon as, because we've been having all, looks like Faces Blur already had a question ready. So let's go ahead and give this a save. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and give this a save and check out what you've got. This may be rather simple. But how would you go about creating this much complexity in an object cloner that looks like this? And you're saying it's by Ronaldo Berry, or also known as Hanier. Ooh, let's see what we got here. This a bit of an experiment I did last Sunday. Well, I can't zoom up much. What do we got? Oh, he zooms up, so. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of cool variation. I mean, what's funny is like, I'd really love to, man, I just need more hours in the day. I would love to sit down and learn some sort of forester plugin or something to start tinkering with plants around in the scene. But this is a fine question. It's called Summerite from Honir. And let's go ahead and see if we can make something akin to it. Now, the main driving force here is, it looks like, to me, it looks something like a torus shape that was constantly twirling around. So you can't do that directly with a torus. What we could do it with is a cylinder. Yeah, I think a cylinder would do it for us. So if we made a cylinder and we get rid of our caps and we give it some height segments, I'm going to give it, I don't know, I'm just going to say 100. 100 is probably too much. Let's do 25. And then we make an inside, and I'm going to give the inside, I don't know, 64 segments, very, very round. And we make I'm going to put the cylinder into a null, and then the null, in the null, I'm going to put a spline wrap. So we put a spline wrap, and the spline wrap, I'm going to say it should be looking at the Z plus axis, and it should be wrapping around the end side. And hopefully what we end up with is a torus. But with this setup, hopefully I can now spin it. There we go. Look at that. I can grab our cylinder shape and spin it around, and it actually twirls. So that goes a long way. Now we also have our spline wrap, so we have things like our rotation. So we could give it a banking of, let's say, 360. And if we give this a transition here, then you can see we actually get a little twirl around. It's actually transitioning. If we set the points to linear, then it should be a linear twirl all the way around. So we get that offset spin. Let's go ahead and give ourselves more subdivisions. More, I like this being about square. There we go. So about square there, and now we can grab our cylinder, and this would be a great use for signal, but let's make it a plugin free day. So I will just keyframe that. Let's fast forward to the end, although we did use X particles, but X particles is a must-have. So let's just record both of those. I actually did not need the H or Y. I didn't know which one I needed, but now I can just hold down Control Command and Shift and click on the dot, and it'll erase out not just that keyframe, all of the keyframes and the track simultaneously. So that should be spinning 360 degrees. You can see we get this spin. Now right now it's accelerating, so let's go ahead and select all, which is going to select all those, both keyframes, and now I can set that interpolation to linear. So that should be constant. And it's going all the way up to 360, so actually if we cut this down to 89, we now have a perfect loop. I don't want to see the spline wrap, but now you can see we have a cylinder that is constantly twisting and twirling. So that should go a really long way. So now we just got a piece of geometry that we can kind of do whatever we want with. I think that's getting the form so we could do things directly, but I'm going to go ahead and put that into a connect object. And now we can do things directly on the connect object. So one thing we could do would be to we don't use this too often. Let's go to MoGraph, MoExtrude. That one could be interesting. I'm going to group Alt-G our connect object. Let's put our MoExtrude in there as well. And let's go ahead and tell this to do, well, this is how many steps it goes, but let's go ahead and tell each step to go out further. And I can see we get all these nice little spikes going on. And if we tell these to shrink on, I'm not sure which axis. Let's just test them. Actually, this is not even scaling them at all. But if we say they should start scaling. Okay, that pinches it nice that way. We pinch it nicely down. No, that's making it shorter. That's the one I didn't want. So we do this. So you can see we start getting these nice little points. Oh, don't want to go too far. But yeah, look at these spikes we got now. And let's hit NB. Whoa, that's actually kind of difficult to look at. Let's go up close and then hit play and see. Yeah, so that's working. So you see these will infinitely twirl around, and it's a perfect looping animation. Now, just by the nature of how many of those we made, it's too much. So let's go ahead and cut both these in half. I'm going to say divided by 2. Divided by 2. So it's not only going to run quicker, but now it should be a little easier to see. Oh, it's already trippy. Let's turn around SSAO so we get a little bit of depth on here. I'm going to go and say a manual. There we go. That flattens it out a bit. And now on our Mo extrude, it's a little bit easier to, let's thicken these at that. It might be a little easier to look at. So, oh man, look at these crazy twists on it. It's almost hurting my eyeballs. If we're close enough, that's okay. But if we go about this range, it starts getting real trippy. Whoa, I like that. And then here it's like, let's see, my brain's adapting to it, but it's pretty crazy. So yeah, so that's just one little flavor we could put on there. But that's a Mo extrude applying on top of this. But we can apply almost anything, I think. Let's go ahead and add hair again. Let's add, actually that might look extra cool if we leave them dynamic. So let's add a hair. And I'm going to say that I want the hairs to be, yeah, right now it's polygon vertex. I'm going to say I want the polygon center. So there's one in the center of each polygon. I want the hairs as guides. So now there's exactly one hair per guide. And let's go ahead and generate not hairs, but squares. And the squares are based off the hair's radius. So let's go ahead and jump those up a little bit bigger. I don't know what our full size is. I can shrink that down now. Let's go up to 22, 22. There we go. So we get something like that. That's already cool looking. But with any luck, our hair dynamics should be running. So these should... Oh, man, that's... I think we need to slow this thing down. It's making me dizzy. I'm going to... Let's go up to 180 keyframe, or 180 frames. I'm going to grab our cylinder, which is spinning. I'm going to pull that all the way to the end and then lower us one frame. That should make us go at half the speed. That should be a little more manageable. Now, are those dynamic? It's hard to tell. I'm going to crank our gravity up higher. Forces, let's start increasing our gravity and seeing if there's any visual effect. Honestly, there doesn't seem to be. Now, unless it's moving so fast that that's not needed. Whoa. Unless it's moving so fast that it's not needed. I'm not sure why they're not having gravity up be applied as guides. Dynamics. I mean, this is just a new setup, so why are these behaving this way? Unless it's like a new model every frame. There we go. Okay, by having weld turned on, it was making the object act like it was a brand new object, brand new piece of geometry every single frame. So as soon as I turn off weld, the connect object is just kind of making it editable. And then it's able to, so what's happening was when it was like refreshing every frame, it was generating brand new hairs every frame. But now the hairs are getting to live from one frame to the next. So now that that's happening, we don't need our gravity to be nearly as strong. In fact, we might not want gravity at all, but let's go back to this. So, okay, at lighter gravity. This is cool looking. But let's try doing no gravity, and we'll just, whoa. I just want to let their, the natural twirl of this give them their shape. So look at that now. Well, it seems like eventually they do flare out, but let's try giving it more drag. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Look at that. That's like butter. Oh, look at that. That's cool. Now, honestly, we're using, these are actually dynamic. These are hairs doing their thing. But because of the nature of the shape, there's no, like, this could just be a flat model. We could use the we could turn this Mo extrude on and get the same look. So if this isn't going to do something in addition to that, we haven't saved this yet. This is really cool. So let's save it. If we want, if we're going to make these dynamic, I don't know what to call this, donut vortex. Oh man, if we wanted if these are going to be dynamic with hair, then there's no reason to do that unless we're going to do some motion that justifies it. So let's go ahead and put in a turbulence. That isn't going to take away from its infinitely tileableness or looping, but let's see. Let's start getting some turbulence. I don't know how high I'm going to have to go until we see it do something. 55. Okay, 55 definitely seems to introduce a little bit of something. Oh, look at the life that gives it. Look at these, like, little waves that are traveling through. That is so cool. And we can very clearly see our scale here. So if I shrink this, then the scale of the noise, oh my goodness, every click I do, it's looking cooler than the frame before. So look at these all trailing behind, but look at this vortex. I'm going to go a little easier on the drag. I like the drag, but I don't want them passing through each other too much. And now look at that thing. It's alive. Oh, man. I like it. I like it. So, yeah, that's looking cool. And it's all geometry. There's a square. Let's see. Can we put a Phong tag on that? Actually, there's a Phong tag on that. I'm going to say limit angle. There we go. I'm going to limit it to 80 degrees. So we get something a little more harder edged. Oh, I like that even more. So that is cool. And then I'm not even sure what to do with, I mean, we can throw any material on here, but I'm not sure what I would want to do with it. Let's just try putting a gradient on it. Let's do a, we can make it real trippy by making it luminant gradient. And we'll set that to V, and now it's traveling along the height of it. So now we could go and put a middle color in there, maybe my favorite teal. And the black is so far inside that I'm inclined to pull that out a little bit more. And then we get something like that. Wow, look at that. And then we make a null, and I'm going to grab the hair, the inside, and this entire thing. I throw that inside a null. Move the material up on the top. And now I'm going to make that number 1. Save this as a new file. Donut vortex number 2B. And let's go ahead and copy and paste that entire thing. And we're going to rotate this one 90 degrees. And we're going to scoot it over like that. And let's go ahead and make an orange variant. And we'll let them start doing their thing. Oh, it's so weird. Yeah, putting hair on there, the hair was only going to be the next step, but hair is so clearly the cooler way to go, and that's going to run faster with just the one. I like getting this a little bit more speed to it. I can't even think of anything to do to add to this. Like that's it's really nice in its simplicity here. So I'm trying to think of because I like it so much. I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of something that would visually add to it, or some challenge to add on top of this. I mean, you know, some challenge, like cloning something on the tip of these. I'm not even sure how I would do that. They are passing through each other a little bit. I can't think of any good way of stopping that from happening. We could do hair on hair dynamics, but I think it's going to fight the flow too much, so I would just kind of leave that the way it is. And then the only other thing that is really jumping to mind is if we could think of a way of making this tileable. And it's just by the nature of something like turbulence. Like turbulence, this is not tileable, so it turns into like morphing into some other object or just crossfading. It even just turns into like that's one model. So because you get pose morph, that's a weird idea. That's really dangerous. Apple, yeah, we could totally change the base shape it's on the inside, so we could jump that down to like 6 pieces, and now it looks like that. We could drop it down to 4, and now we got this little square fella here. We can change the size of almost anything here. Like there's a lot of different things we could do. Oh, and it even kind of reacts to it because that's the shape. But something goofy just popped in my head, and I don't know if this is a thing. But it's just hair So if we were to make a, here's my thought. It's just a curious thought. Is if we make that editable, it's just a piece of geometry. So are we able to morph that? Could we pose morph it to cross morph it to different things? So the best way would be to just make a duplicate of this shape and transition between the two. It's going to be running a little bit slow. But, you know, actually we can do a very simple version, which is just could we morph this shape into the animating one and out of it? So let's just see if we can do that. I'm going to hide the original. Now we just got this new one, and it's not doing anything. If I play, it's just static. So now if we right click and we add a character tag, we add a pose morph, and we turn on the points. I want to do points, and I'm going to delete pose 0 because I want to drag in our hair as our reference. And I can never remember, do we want it as an absolute reference or a relative reference? I think we want relative. But that's not necessarily true. If we go to animate, oh goodness, something's happening. Let's try that again. I'm going to try the other one. Let's add in the hair again as a yes. And it's already doing something. Actually, it's really weird because I told that, let me see. For hiding that, nothing's here. So all we're seeing is this. If all we're seeing is this, then I don't understand what motion that we're seeing. Do you see how it seems like there's two copies of our geometry? That's weird. Why would it do that? Oh, it seems real confused now. But why? I guess I haven't really tinkered with it, but if we make this hair editable, it's almost like there's two copies of all of its geometry. I'm going to hit UW on that, selecting one polygon and move it, and there's nothing under it. So you get that, and then, I mean, I'm just doing the same thing again. Why did that happen? Pose morph. I want it to clone onto the points. It should be the exact same points. And I mean, it might lose itself because it doesn't have a base, which is always something. So we just rename this one base. I don't really think that's the problem, but I'm going to say that's the base shape. So we could say that base pose. Can we not delete the base pose? Thought we could. Well, let's just drag in the base pose. Yes. Can we delete that now? Maybe, maybe not. I messed that one up. There. Do I just have to unlock it? What makes that one so special? That's not deletable. I mean, it's the original one, but it's still weird to me. We could probably largely ignore that, but I'm going to drag in our new pose. Yes. And we drag in our animated one. Yes. And then if we go to animate, and those are both hidden, so all we're seeing is the geometry of our new object, and it doesn't seem to match. So all we're seeing is geometry of one object. Why is only seemingly half of it do anything? Yeah, it's weird to me. The pose morph on the first frame. What are you talking about? The pose morph on the first frame. It seems like it, unless, no, that doesn't make any sense. That's that. That's that. They're the same. I don't know. That's a weird one. I'm not quite sure about that one. Back to spinning. Whee! What's fun is, like, these are hairs, so we could move this around and it's just going to be responding as well. I think I could just take it and go, whoa, whoa. Yeah. I mean, I want to go easy on it to keep it looking nice, but it's pretty cool. You can spin it one direction for a little bit and then spin it back the other way. Yeah, my little pose morph thing didn't translate. Bowser's asking how would we vary the thickness? It's all driven via the hair. So inside of the hair material, you can go into your thickness, and here is how that's being controlled. So all we do is add variation here, crank that up, and then you see we get fat ones and thin ones. So yeah, varied thickness. We could also go to length, and we could add variation on the length. And you see some are getting shorter, and some, I don't know if they ever get longer, but yeah, they can get shorter. So now you can get some shorter ones and longer ones. So that starts looking a little bit rougher. Personally, I like it a little more uniform, because that's just trippy. Doom, boom, 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 boom. Let's invert that color. You never know. Yeah. I thought it might look kind of cool if it was glowy on the inside, but I guess there it's okay. But it's just better this way. As to say, oh, it's already on. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to wrap this one up. If anybody has any additional questions, somebody said you could pose more of the spline wrap. Yeah, there's no reason you couldn't. Like, this could just be looking at spline, and that spline could be morphing to different shapes. So that's a viable thing. Like, you know, and even that, we're just cloning onto this end side. So this end side could be doing anything. This end side could be dynamic. We could add a simulation, soft body, add a floor. I don't know if this will work. It might need to be cached. Yeah, look, blah, blah. So yeah, this is, you know, we can add layers and layers of dynamicness on top of each other. And even this, we've got our big tube there. If we, there's too many subdivisions, but we could add some significant thickness here. I'm going to drop this down to 24, and now we could give that some margin. I don't know how big we can go. Say 25. It'll probably explode. Yeah, not that bad. But now you see I gave it some thickness. 55? Yeah, 55 explodes a bit. But yeah, now it shouldn't be 45. Does that not explode? No, that explodes. Yeah, maybe 25 was just coincidentally the correct amount. But yeah, so you know, this can be pretty alive and doing its thing. But you can see the thickness we'd want is more like 50, but there's too many points to do 50, so we'd have to make there be half as many sides, 12. And now this should be closer to being the correct thickness. So you'd have to do things to trick it to work a little more properly. But there's no reason, you know, at that point we could copy and paste it. We have two of them. Actually, that'd be weird. Maybe now we can intersect them. Let's see what that does. Oh, that's so weird. Boom. But yeah, look, there. You know, Dynamics is saying, nope, you're interlinked. Look at this crazy dragon thing. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That's cool. Look at them swirling around doing their thing. And yeah, we at this point we could be changing dynamic settings. They could be up in the air, just twisting around with turbulence, trapped on each other. The spline wrap isn't even twirling them around. Where right now we're getting the illusion of them traveling through each other a little bit, like where it feels like they're, when it goes a little bit more steady, see it feels like it's spinning through. But I think that's just an illusion because we twisted the mesh, but we could technically even make those spin through by going to our spline wrap and doing an offset. So if we offset that, then they can actually be traveling along each other. We can make a fuzzy, you know, series of links here. Turn off gravity, Command D, dynamics, gravity 0, and now turbulence should still be affecting those individual tubes. So that same turbulence that's blowing these around in the wind is also the same turbulence that's going to be making these twist around and do their own thing. Interlink a couple of those, or have them start twisting around. You got yourself a full-on funky dragon. I kind of like the gravity being in there, but or maybe a little bit of gravity. Whoa. Yeah, let's save that as another version just because it's cool. I'm not sure why the post morph didn't work. It feels like it's behaving like the poly counts aren't the same. So I'm not 100% sure about that one. But it could also be that this hair, maybe we're trying to tell it to go where this hair goes, but we maybe want to put that into a connect object first. I'm not entirely sure. Ba, 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 ba. Let's see. It's a fun one though. Let's do. I guess we've got about 20 minutes left. So if anybody has a question, let's post that in here. In the meantime, let's see. Do I have any quick news? I don't want to lose the screen, which it's unfortunate I have that limitation that we have to worry about. Real quick, first of all, thank you all for answering the questions. Couldn't possibly do this if people didn't have cool questions about Cinema 4D. That's always fun. I wanted to do a. Oh, I think it did just freeze up. So there we go. We're locked into the screen now. Thank you, broadcast. Thank you, X stream. So we're just going to stay on this stream and answer one more question. I'm not going to get to do my little animation thing. The Bowser has a question, a projection question. Is it possible to use body paint to clean up occluded areas of projection? Oof, that's potentially a pretty complicated question. I want to check out the link. But let me just read a couple of these other ones real quick. First of all, real quick shout out if you haven't, if you're not already on the Rocket Lasso Slack, make sure you head over to rocketlassoslack.com, and that can get you in. And people are answering questions, asking questions, showing things off. You get notifications when we're going live, posting and sharing tutorials and cool group projects. So definitely go and check that out. If you're on Twitch, there's a link to it below. Tobias saying, Polycam's probably the same in the wrong position. It could be, but it's just weird to make it editable and then it's suddenly jumping around. A more general question, is there a way to clone things onto the tips of hairs only? Oh, that's going back to what I was saying. And then Crossfader saying, how do you create a dynamic window blind? A dynamic window blind, that'd be crazy. I don't think I would make it dynamic. I would make it partially dynamic and let the rest of it be deformed somehow. But let's click this link from Bowser and see if there's anything to do here. What do we got? It's from the Foundry, the Nuke Amari workflow. So it looks like it might be a tutorial about a particular workflow inside of, well, they're in house projection. I'm going to keep jumping forward until I see what seems to be the question. It seems to be a lot of, well, I mean, they're doing some sort of projection and repairing things. Funky. Okay, let me reread your question. Projection question. Is it possible to use body paint to clean up occluded areas of a projection? Okay, I understand your question. And it's something that I was struggling with a lot when I was doing the photogrammetry. In the photogrammetry, you would get part of the object, but not the bottom part. Or, you know, like if your object was sitting at a table, you couldn't take photos of the bottom. So that was a limitation. And I came up with several techniques I was trying to do. And at one point, I was trying to tinker with the UVs and body paint to make it do something. And then there's the Projection Man workflow, and I even spent quite a few hours trying to look into the Projection Man workflow, and I could have been missing something, but man, it was not cooperating in any way that I would have wanted to. Having said all that, there's no reason to think that body paint couldn't be doing a pretty good job of doing repairs on occluded areas. So you're saying if you do projection mapping, then you get these other messed up areas. It just goes to like you would need. I'm just not like I don't open up body paint very often, so I don't even have a good example. you just need to make sure your UVs are laid out really well. And then you're going to project a camera projection. And then you have to, how would you bake it? How would you transfer it? That's the tricky part. That is the tricky part. See you, Crossfader. I don't have an answer for you. It would take some sitting down and doing stuff with UVs and body paint. The trick comes in to, we're not really going to do it here, but the trick comes into if you were projecting something. Let's say you had your camera POV and you're projecting the facade of a building onto this, but of course you don't have the back side of it. So how do you project a second time? Now you could, one simple thing you could do is project from the POV of the camera and then limit that to particular polygons. So, and then do another projection that's limited to different polygons from a different one. That's the simplest way. Because at that point, when you do camera projection, it doesn't even care. It doesn't even care about your UVs. It's just like based on limiting your polygon projection. When you do, yeah, sorry, I just don't have a short answer for you. I don't have an answer that would be probably less than 2 hours long of like doing R&D on it. Yeah, I agree that the polygon selections would be too sharp to do transitions as a general rule, but it goes to the problem goes to that if we were projecting, dang it, I feel like they in R20 they moved this like a pixel over, and it's enough to trip me up like almost every time. If I try and move this, I accidentally collapse it down. Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't even have good ways of illustrating this for other people who might not know exactly what we're talking about. But how would you blend between them? Because I literally, these are the same problems I was running into when I was trying to do the photogrammetry stuff, which is if this camera's projecting, but I want it to softly fade from one side to the other, I would want to paint like the soft mask to do a transition. So I don't know. So then I guess maybe more what it goes to, how do you project it onto the UVs? Like, doesn't it go to more, we don't have a good example here. I mean, do we have can I find a real fast, like, building facade? Search Google for building, images, settings, or more, size, large, usage rights, reuse with modification. So, what is our basic idea here? It's going to be even hard to find an example. I guess, well, we're not going to build this piece of geometry for sure. A lot of Chicago buildings here. That's in Chicago. That's in Chicago. Give me a second to think. How do I do an example of what we're trying to do here? Because I don't want to be matching all the stuff like really meticulously. Honestly, this might work. Because let's just say we want to get some of this rooftop is kind of what's implied, or let's see, let's take a screenshot of that. And I think Photoshop had crashed. So, well, when I had to restart the computer, actually, it didn't relaunch, so we got to pull that up again. So the idea would be that we need to project this from a camera. We need really nice UVs to start out with. So we open up a new file here. We'll put in that. We will save it. And let's just go into our scene files and make a new folder. Texture. And save this as building. And then we go back to cinema, and we would need to project. We need to. We need to put the image in, and oh man, my brain is just not connecting with this. Like, we need to do the very basic one. So I would want to just put this as a flat background, or what's even my image overlay to make the basic shape, because we want perspective. So we could do the camera. We would want to match the imagery and then start putting the building stuff there. But then we'd project the UVs in a particular direction and then start mapping it. Yeah. Yeah, it's a dead end right now for talking about it through. I don't have a good answer for it. That would be a really, really good detailed tutorial. Maybe something like that even already exists. But I am just not going to be able to do much with it right now. So let's see if we can squeeze in one of the other quick ones. I like it as a question. It's neat. There's a lot of. It's a really technical one, so that's not going to be fun. It's not going to be exciting, but it's a very good detailed thing that could come up often. In fact, like I was saying, when I was doing the photogrammetry, there's several different things where I was trying to merge different ones to make it work. And but what was one of the other questions? Oh, was it Eric had a question? You said this was made with code, zooming triangle spiral. From Mark Edwards. Zooming triangle spiral. Yeah, it's okay, a spiral code. But I'm trying to think. How would we spiral it? You got all these little dots. So I'm going to assume that that's not the specific. We don't need the specifics on that one. So we could. We can't just do a simple projection, because I mean, in some ways you could think you would just make a cylinder, make it 3 sides, remove the caps, and then angle it like this, and then we could just project a material on it in such a way where that would just be spinning around. And maybe we could, but maybe we just need an angled material. That always turns into tricky. It's like the candy cane conundrum, which is you need to angle a material in such a perfect way that you get that loop, and then that would essentially just automatically give it to you. And it could be as straightforward as that, but it would be really nice if there's a projection-wise, if there's a better way of doing that, because there's a lot of ways we could potentially do it. In my head right now, actually, the easiest way would be making a helix and spiraling enough times so that we're getting exactly triangles. Let's see, if I say this is none, you see we get this little triangle, and if we look at it from a flat angle, you see it's a triangle. Okay, so based on that principle, if we double the number of points, it might be double plus 1, I'm not sure, let's say 6 points. Actually, yeah, that worked fine. And then based on how many times we spiral, so let's double it again, 12. Okay, that was too much. So now we have to double our spin. So every time I double my spin, I can double my points. So let's say times 4 on our subdivision. Now I can say times 4 on my spin. And you can see we're going to be constantly getting these triangles. So if we increase our height, then now I've got this whole nice series of spiraling triangles. And based on that, we could, I think the simplest would be just make an extrude. We can extrude. Tell it to extrude in X, Y, Z, and do that, and look at that. Now we've got our triangles. You go here, and let's push this further. Add a 1 in front of it, and let's put that to 2, 2, 2, and let's zoom out, and then we go. Oh, it's really far, but yeah, we go over here and zoom. So yeah, we don't have to get fancy. We don't have to get crazy with any code or anything. You just do something as simple as that. And what's nice about doing it with this bit of geometry here Although I don't know how the UVs are going to look because we extruded upward. But if we make a material, I'm going to just do an illuminance channel, and heck, I'll even just use some simple noise. I'm going to make it a two-dimensional noise and apply it. It's going to get really stretched out. But yeah, actually that's working. That is UV in a way I would want it to be. So if we crop these out, like really pull these in, do something like that. And then I guess my basic idea was instead of luminance, we could put that into alpha. And then just make this luminant. So now you get these luminant stripes. Now we can get these nice stripes going. And we can travel through, and you get, if you were to render, then you're going to get your stripes soft, and you can even get them potentially like zoom, 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 traveling around. And we've just got our infinite geometry to travel through. So yeah, this one surprisingly easy if we're not overthinking it. And I really love how much you can make with a helix. Like it's just a little helix spline, and if you do the kind of correct numerical breakdown, you can make all these really nice patterns. You can make like trusses out of a helix. Let's save this one. That's not donut vortex. This is now try spiral. But in any case, what I was going to say is if we kind of do the numbers differently, I guess resetting this would probably be a good idea. Let's reset, reset, reset. If we drop our point count down the correct amount, yeah, okay, that's sort of what I'm going for. You can see how it's flat now? This is completely flat, and now we're getting this zigzag, so I don't know if this will work, but if I say times 2, now it's not flat anymore. But if we double our angle, or I said times 4, so let's do times 4. Oh dear, I think it was only times 2. Yeah, there. So now you see, look, we've doubled it. So now if I increase my height, here you can see we start getting these, it's a parametric zigzag. So by increasing this to 2000, you can see we get this parametric version of, let's go ahead and double our points. So let's say times 4. And then we say times 4 the number of spirals, and then times 4 our distance, and look at this zigzag pattern that we get. So yeah, boom, parametric version of a little zigzag. And then using that type of thing, we can make a sweep, put these both in. We make a nice little shape like that. You take that, you feed that into a, it's going to be not offset correctly, but I'm going to do the quick version of it. Put this into a cloner. Set the cloner to radial. Ooh, that's already neat looking. Yeah, look at that. Oh my goodness, look at the shape. It's amazing. But what I wanted was 4, and then we set our radius correctly like that. Something about like that. And then I don't quite have the shape, but if we just make a box, T for scale, I'm just eyeballing this, but if we made that big and long enough, that's really long, but whatever, I'm gonna make it editable, and let's select all edges and say edge to spline. And if we also did a sweep with our edge to spline, burp, do something like that, and look, you can start making like a pretty parametric truss. You get this really nice trussing. Like I said, these aren't quite offset the way I would want them to be. It would be pretty easy to do that, or take every other one and flip them. But yeah, it's really cool what you can do with a helix. And you get all these really great patterns really quickly with such simple setups. Go Helix spline. It does everything. It's our zigzags, it's our spirals, it's our straight spline. It does so many things. All right, well, we're 3 minutes from the end, and my streaming software is still frozen and not going to allow me to do anything, so I'm going to have to force quit it again, unfortunately. So I won't be able to do my proper wave goodbye. Also, I guess I'll do a special shout out to the Great Wanderer Studios for their support on Patreon, as well as Burst FX. Thank you so much for doing the big support on Patreon. It also is super helpful if anybody watching here is new. A lot of this stream and the tutorials are supported via support on Patreon. It enables me to do more of this. So, and hopefully be able to put more tutorials out there. So I've gotten 2 tutorials out. If you didn't see the groundbreaking tutorial, that was really fun. I've got some other ideas along those lines. Really looking forward to that. But thanks so much, everybody, for coming and asking questions. It should be really fun. Like, even just today, like, not only did we make some cool things, but there's like 3 different ideas for like giant potential tutorials. There's just not enough time in the day to do the R&D and then recording and then editing of it. But I want to do all of it. It's just there's other things I need to do even more. So I am going to wrap this one up officially. Why don't we save this Truss because it's cool too. I guess it's 3B, but it's the Helix Truss. I already put in my notes to go and figure out what the heck is going on with XSplits. Hopefully we can get that working. Like I said, next week might be a special stream from LA at SIGGRAPH if I can get it working. Otherwise, the stream will be pushed back to Thursday when I get back home. So I will see you on Wednesday of next week or possibly Thursday. Thank you so much for hanging out. And if you'll excuse me, I need to force quit my XSplit.